Have you ever felt a silence inside your body so deep it almost scared you? Not the kind of silence that feels empty, but one that feels like something is about to begin. If you've ever stepped away from love, from intimacy, from the world's noise, and found yourself wondering, what is this stillness trying to tell me? Then this video may be exactly what your soul has been waiting for. Because behind abstinence, beyond the absence, there is a hidden whisper. And today we will explore what Carl Jung called the individuation process, a path not of denial, but of deep spiritual reclamation. You'll discover why the woman who withdraws does not fade, but awakens, why silence isn't punishment, but a sacred ritual, and why the journey into the shadow is actually the doorway to becoming whole. Let me tell you a short story. There was once a woman who used to feel most alive when she was desired. But one day something shifted. She stopped chasing, stopped craving. At first she felt lost, invisible, unseen. But then, in the silence, something ancient stirred within her. And from that moment, she was never the same. If you've ever felt something similar, even if you don't have the words for it yet, drop it in the comments. Let me know if you too feel the whisper. And if you're ready to walk this path of fire and stillness with me, subscribe to the channel. Let's begin the journey inward. There's a silence that doesn't feel like emptiness. It feels like the breath before a sacred ceremony, like the stillness of earth right before the first bloom of spring. When a woman withdraws, whether by choice or circumstance, and her body becomes quiet, the world often rushes to label her cold, broken, undesirable. But what if she is simply listening to a different kind of voice? There's a kind of silence that isn't absence, but presence amplified. A state where every heartbeat echoes louder, every breath feels intentional. And in that depth, something ancient stirs. Carl Jung once said, "What we do not bring to consciousness appears in our lives as fate." And perhaps this silence, this gentle retreat, is not surrender, but the soul's first attempt to rewrite fate. Many women today feel disconnected, not just from others, but from themselves. The roles they've played, lover, muse, caretaker, begin to lose meaning. And in that shedding, they enter a space society has no name for. But this is not void. It is the womb of rebirth. It is where the soul begins to prepare something new. A woman in silence is not a woman in absence. She is a woman standing at the threshold of transformation, not reaching outward, but inward, not waiting to be touched, but learning to touch the deepest part of herself. She may not know what's happening. She might call it exhaustion, disinterest, confusion. But beneath those labels, something sacred is unfolding. In the hush of abstinence, her soul begins to speak, and what it says will change everything. Have you ever felt this kind of silence? One that doesn't scream, but sings in a language only your heart understands? If yes, tell me in the comments. I feel it too. Let's keep walking together. There comes a moment when the silence is no longer just silence. It begins to echo with meaning. That's when she starts to sense. There is more to this stillness than she imagined. Something inside her is shifting, slowly, subtly, but undeniably. Carl Jung called this the awakening of archetypes, the emergence of forgotten symbols that live within every soul, especially within the feminine unconscious. This isn't about being lonely. It's about becoming still enough to hear the voice beneath all other voices. She starts dreaming differently. Symbols show up: caves, water, wolves, flames, images from somewhere deeper than memory. And those dreams aren't random. They're messengers from what Jung called the shadow, the repressed, hidden, vital parts of her being. The woman begins to remember who she was before the world told her who to be. Not the version shaped by expectations, titles, or lovers, but the raw, instinctive, intuitive essence that was buried beneath years of adaptation. This is her archetypal awakening, a meeting with the wild woman, the seer, the mother, the sage inside her. She isn't adding anything new. She's uncovering what was always there. And this can be terrifying, because now she can't pretend. She sees too clearly. The masks others wear, the ones she once wore, now feel heavy, false, irrelevant. Her silence deepens, not because she has nothing to say, but because what she's discovering cannot be spoken in ordinary language. It's the language of soul, of symbol, of instinct. She may withdraw even further, not out of bitterness, but because she knows she's stepping into sacred ground. The world may not understand, but something inside her does. This is not isolation, it's initiation. And as the archetypes rise within her, she begins to embody them, not perform them, not study them, but become them. Have you noticed this in yourself? An old identity crumbling, a deeper voice rising? If so, leave a comment with the archetype you feel most drawn to, the wild woman, the healer, the guide. Let's name what's awakening inside you. What if abstinence wasn't absence, but alchemy? In the world's eyes, abstinence often looks like denial, like deprivation. But through the lens of the soul, it is preparation, not the withholding of pleasure, but the transmutation of energy. When a woman chooses, or finds herself, without physical intimacy, it's not that her desire disappears. It transforms. That longing for closeness, for touch, for passion, it doesn't vanish. It descends. It deepens. Jung would say that what we repress doesn't go away. It finds another path. And in the sacred pause of abstinence, desire begins to seek a different destination, not outward, but inward. Her body isn't rejecting connection. It's redirecting it toward her dreams, her art, her visions. Her silence becomes fertile. She might start to notice that her intuition sharpens, that she feels more connected to the moon, the tides, the rhythms of life itself. It's not magic. It's attention. When she stops spending all her energy in pursuit, she reclaims it. And in reclaiming it, she reawakens something ancient, the power to create, to see, to choose. This is what alchemy looks like in the modern woman, turning the hunger for validation into the fire of self-recognition, melting the need for affection into the gold of self-trust, letting the absence of touch reveal the presence of essence. And yes, this isn't easy. There are nights when she'll miss the comfort of arms, the dopamine of affection, the distraction of attention. But something in her knows. What she's creating is deeper than comfort. It's wholeness. The woman who embraces abstinence as alchemy isn't running from love. She's preparing to love without losing herself. Have you ever felt like your deepest transformation came in your quietest seasons? Drop a if you've ever sensed your energy changing form. Let's honor this sacred alchemy together. There's a unique kind of grief that comes not from losing a person, but from losing a place. When a woman steps back from the world she once knew, the relationships, the roles, the rhythms, she doesn't just feel alone. She feels like she no longer belongs anywhere. She's no longer the lover, not the wife, not the muse, not the desired one. She is only herself. And at first that feels like nothing. It's a pain that doesn't scream. It whispers, "Who am I now?" Because for so long her worth was tied to how much others wanted her, how much she gave, how beautifully she fulfilled expectations. And now that she has stopped playing the game, the world seems to look right past her. She walks through spaces she once lit up, and no one turns. She posts, and no one reacts. She's quiet, and no one asks why. And that hurts, more than any breakup, more than any rejection. Because this time, she didn't lose someone else. She lost the version of herself the world knew how to respond to. But here's the sacred truth. She hasn't disappeared. She's emerging. It just takes time for the world to catch up to a woman who no longer lives on its surface. She's moving into a different frequency now. One that doesn't beg for approval but pulses with authenticity. And yes, this transition is painful, like a snake shedding skin, like a butterfly pushing through the cocoon. It feels like death, but it's actually birth. The pain of no longer belonging is the first sign that you're beginning to belong to yourself. Have you felt this? This ache of not fitting where you once felt at home? If so, comment, "I'm in between." Let's honor this brave in-between together. At first, the silence feels sacred. Then, it gets uncomfortable. And eventually, it gets dark. This is when the shadow arrives. Not as a villain, but as a visitor. Carl Jung warned us, everything we deny within ourselves eventually shows up as fate. And when a woman stops distracting herself with relationships, validation, or noise, what she's been avoiding finally finds her. The fear, the insecurity, the craving to be seen, the guilt, the grief, all the emotions she once swept under the rug, they start knocking, not to punish her, but to be witnessed. And it's terrifying, because in that moment, she begins to question everything. Did I make a mistake stepping away? Am I just broken? Am I wasting my time, my beauty, my chance at love? The world around her doesn't help. Friends tell her she's isolating. Family urges her to go out more. Social media screams, "Time is running out." It feels like she's swimming against the current. And she is. But what she doesn't know yet is that this isn't regression. It's revelation. She's not losing her mind. She's losing her masks. And the ego doesn't like that. Because for years, the ego kept her safe, by keeping her small, agreeable, chosen. But now the soul is stepping in, and the ego panics. So the shadow knocks louder. It whispers old patterns. Old lovers reappear. Temptations call. It's not coincidence. It's initiation. This is the test. Will she return to the familiar, or stay, even in the darkness? The woman who stays, despite the tears, the doubts, the aching solitude, is being shaped by something greater than herself. She's not being punished. She's being purified. Have you heard your shadow knock? What did it sound like? Comment with a word or phrase your shadow once whispered. Let's name it, so it no longer controls us. She thought she was retreating, but what she was really doing was entering the temple. Not a temple of stone or ritual or prayer, but a temple of silence, built inside her own soul. In the absence of another's body, she begins to feel her own. In the absence of external love, she starts to meet the love that waits within. It's strange at first, to sit in silence and hear nothing but the sound of herself. No flattery, no flirting, no eyes watching her. Just breath, and heartbeat, and stillness. But over time, that silence starts to sing. Her skin, no longer touched by another, becomes sensitive to the wind, the moonlight, the sacredness of breath. Her body is no longer performing, it's listening. She doesn't light candles for someone else anymore. She lights them for herself. She doesn't dress to attract. She dresses to align. Her home becomes sacred. Her routines become rituals, and her solitude becomes ceremony. Jung would call this the reconciliation with the feminine unconscious, the space beyond logic, beyond control, where symbols, emotions, and intuitions live. It doesn't happen through thinking, it happens through presence. In the inner temple, she begins to see her emotions differently, not as problems to fix, but as sacred mirrors reflecting what needs to be seen. The sadness isn't weakness, it's a messenger. The longing isn't lack, it's direction. And slowly, the loneliness softens. It becomes something else, something holier. She no longer feels abandoned. She feels chosen by her own soul. Because the woman who walks into her own temple finds a truth no lover could give her. She was never waiting to be saved. She was waiting to come home. Have you ever created a space, physical or emotional, just for your soul? If yes, share what your temple looks like. Is it a morning ritual, a quiet walk, a candlelit bath? Let's honor the ways we meet ourselves. Cycles don't break themselves. They repeat again and again until someone chooses to interrupt them. And for many women, the choice to withdraw, to stop reaching, stop performing, stop proving, is the first quiet act of revolution. She used to chase, to explain, to stay too long, to give too much, to love in ways that broke her, not because she didn't know better, but because the cycle was familiar. The attention, the chaos, the high, the crash. It felt like love. It felt like home. But now, something in her refuses. She's seen the pattern. And she can no longer pretend it's a coincidence. The same kind of men, the same kind of endings, the same emptiness, dressed in different faces. And even though she doesn't know exactly what comes next, she knows what she will no longer accept. This is where the true work begins. Not in becoming someone new, but in unbecoming who she had to be to survive. She starts saying no, not loudly at first. Sometimes it's just silence. Sometimes it's not replying. Sometimes it's just walking away. And it's hard, because healing often looks like isolation. But it's not exile. It's evolution. She is not giving up on love. She's giving up on patterns that confuse pain for passion. The more she honors this decision, the more her soul begins to reveal itself. And what she finds isn't a better version of herself. It's the wholeness that was always there, beneath the people-pleasing, beneath the performance, beneath the fear of being alone. She's not becoming whole. She's remembering she already is. Have you ever felt the pull to break a cycle, even if you didn't know where it would lead? If so, comment. I choose wholeness. This space is for all of us, who are done repeating what no longer serves our soul. She used to love, because she needed to be loved, because affection felt like oxygen, because attention felt like proof. But now, something has changed. She's no longer reaching out from hunger. She's offering from fullness. This is love as overflow. It doesn't chase. It doesn't beg. It doesn't sacrifice truth for company. It waits. It discerns. It honors both herself and the other. After walking through silence, after sitting in the ache of absence, after learning to hold her own hand, she's discovered something priceless. She doesn't love from lack anymore. She loves from abundance. That shift changes everything. She doesn't seek to be completed. She seeks to be met. She doesn't melt into someone. She expands beside them. And if no one comes, she remains whole, peaceful, radiant. Her body, once desperate for affection, now carries a different kind of magnetism. Not one of seduction, but of soul. And yes, when love arrives, she welcomes it. But it must match her frequency. It must meet her where she is, rooted, clear, free. This kind of love doesn't drain. It amplifies. It doesn't consume. It co-creates. Because she has stopped seeing love as a destination. It is now an expression of who she already is. And even in its absence, she doesn't feel empty. She feels in alignment. She knows the difference now between love and attachment, between presence and possession, between devotion and dependency. This is love as overflow, and it can only emerge after silence has done its sacred work. Have you ever felt this shift? From needing love to becoming love? If yes, drop A and let the world know. You're no longer looking to be chosen. You've chosen yourself. Not all flames roar. Some burn quietly, endlessly, within. This is the silent flame, the woman who has walked through the wilderness of herself and returned not as someone waiting, but as someone becoming. She no longer performs, she no longer pleads, she no longer molds herself into shapes that fit small places. The world, once so loud, now feels distant. Not because she's cut it off, but because she no longer needs its noise to feel alive. She's found her own rhythm, her own rituals, her own radiance. When her body desires again, it will not be out of fear of being alone. It will be from the clarity of choice. She no longer gives herself to be filled. She offers herself to be shared. There's no rush to be seen. She has become her own witness. There's no desperation to be held. She holds herself with sacred strength. Carl Jung said, "What we do not bring to consciousness appears in our lives as fate. But she has brought it all to light. The pain, the patterns, the longing, the silence. And now, she doesn't carry the past like baggage. She wears it like a crown. She no longer hides her depth. She embodies it. She is the woman who no longer waits to be chosen. She is the fire. She is the altar. She is the echo of every woman who ever silenced herself, only to rise again, flaming from within. If you've made it here, if you've walked with me through this entire journey, you're already carrying that flame too. Let it burn quietly. Let it burn true. Let it light the way for others. And if this touched a place in you that words couldn't reach before, comment with. Let the silent ones recognize each other.